Hello, everybody. Welcome to this first World Printers Forum webinar in 2022. My name is Ingi Olafsson, and I am the director of the World Printers Forum. It is very enjoyable to see you all here again, and with a very good company from Intergraf in Belgium. Today we have an very exciting topic, as always. We will hear about the European Green Deal that will affect the printing industry and how it will affect the printing industry. Today with us is Laetitia Reynaud, Policy Advisor of Intergraf. Just to tell you a little bit more about Laetitia. She handles economic, policy and environmental issues at the European Federation for Print and Digital Communication, Intergraf, which represents the interest of European graphic industry in Brussels. Laetitia is French and holds a university degree in economics and master's degree in European economics. Before joining Integraf in January 2012, she held for 10 years a similar position at the European Federation of Waste Management and Environmental Services, FED, where she dealt with numerous environmental topics. The format of the webinar will be similar as before. We will have the speaker. I will tell you a little bit about how it will work, and then we will have the speaker talk for some time. And then we will have a Q&A session afterwards. So please post all your questions in the Q&A bar below, and we will pick Laetitia's brain after this. So Laetitia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingi. Thank you for the introduction. I will share my screen now. Here you go. So you have already introduced myself, so I think I will start right away with introducing the organization I work for, Intergraf. We have included here 4 pictures to try to summarize what we're doing. Our main task is to do advocacy work and represent the printing industry towards European institutions here in Brussels. We also provide a platform of exchange of information and best practices between our members being national printing trade federations. We have 21 member federations, and we also have associate members. We also organize events where it is also the opportunity to exchange with members, and we provide statistics and economic information to our members. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. We have a website and a monthly newsletter, which is open to everyone. So today I'm expected to talk about the European Green Deal, which I will do. This is a priority for Intergraf. However, currently, I feel there is another priority that we have to discuss. So I thought I would include a couple of slides, first on the economic situation and how and what we are doing on this. There are a number of concerns for the printing industry in general, ranging, like for many other industries, from logistics problems, skyrocketing energy costs, increasing costs of different input materials. But the main current problem that printers are facing currently is the situation with paper. It was quite frightening to put that graph together a couple of days ago. And looking at the latest price average, this represents here the price for newsprint in Germany, and this is the evolution between 2012 and last month, January 2022. The situation is actually similar for other graphic papers for the industry, mainly paper in reels, like SC and LWC. Actually, for paper and sheets, the situation is similar, but the increase or the latest increases are a bit of a lesser extent. If we compare the price of January to the highest price reached in 2019, which were already like historical highs, We are up to plus 32% last month. Even more concerning for some of the members over this crazy soaring prices are the shortages of graphic paper in Europe, and not being able to fulfill orders is a real concern for members in general. We have addressed our concerns as an industry trade associations at several occasions. More recently, in October, we have put together a statement following the sudden energy surcharges applied by the paper manufacturers. More recently, we focused on the shortages and even more recently on the UPM strike, calling on UPM to try to resolve the problem, because it is becoming extremely tight now on the market. So our role is to try to support our members as much as possible in this current crisis, but we are also preparing for the future. And one of our aims is to look at how the future will look like in terms of paper supply. One aspect is to look at the capacities that will, and how capacities will develop in the future. And here you see the evolution of graphic paper capacities in Western Europe since the 90s. And it goes up to 2022 with forecasted capacity reductions. This covers all graphic paper grades, not only newsprint. Well, you see how, I mean, I think it's really obvious since 2006, the capacity reductions. In 2021, we were half of the capacities of 2006. Further reductions are foreseen in this year. They have been announced already. And we are reaching a level which is even below the levels of the 90s. Preparing for the future also means looking at policy initiatives that will influence the supply of paper in the coming years and decades. And this is now, we're always looking for a transition in such presentations. This is now my transition to the European Green Deal, because this is actually one of the aspects tackled by this European Green Deal. In May 2019, we, as Europeans, voted for a new European Parliament, which itself elected a new Commission President, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen. She took office on the 1st of December 2019, and on the 11th December in the same year, so 11 days after her taking office, she unveiled the European Green Deal. And she described it as Europe's man on the moon moment. When you Google search the words Green Deal, you come up with this kind of picture highlighting the different areas that this European Green Deal tackles. They are very different. Actually, most of the issues are covered, policies are covered under the Green Deal. So it was the aim of the Commission to put a green aspect for most of its policy initiatives. The initiatives range from the sourcing of raw materials to the use of chemicals in the production, and the emissions of our production processes are also covered by policy initiatives. And finally, the placing on the market of the end product, take the newspaper in our case, on the market. So this is the area which I will focus on for this presentation. One of the key elements of the Green Deal is the concept of Fit for 55. meaning that most policy initiatives that the Commission is making or will make will have the aim to help achieving the goal of 55% of greenhouse gas emissions reduction by 2030, and ultimately reach climate neutrality by 2050. So I suggest that we navigate a little bit in the text of the European Green Deal and start with the access to wood fibers. The text that was presented by the Commission is a new forest strategy for 2030. It is really one of the flagship initiatives of the European Green Deal. It aims at achieving both the EU biodiversity objectives, but also the greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. The 3 bullet points that you see are quotes from this forest strategy, and that will give you a bit of a flavor of where the Commission intends to go for the next decade. One of the aims is to protect, restore, and enlarge EU forests to combat climate change, reverse biodiversity loss, and ensure resilient and multifunctional forest ecosystems. It aims at ensuring sustainable use of wood-based resources for bioenergy and protecting remaining primary and old growth forests. So when looking at the details of the strategy, and when I say we, now it's in a larger sense, more the forest-based industries, we are concerned that the strategy is focusing more on the sink function of forest and disregards the holistic contribution of wood-based products and all the contribution that they can give to a more circular economy. The emphasis, as you can see, is on the protection and on the conservation of European forests. While we think that there should be at least a similar emphasis on promoting sustainable forest management practices. On bioenergy, the European Commission counts on wood-based bioenergy to meet this 55% emission reduction target, as this is one of the main sources of renewable energy in Europe. What we fear is, of course, that this will create more competition for wood fibers. And the increased competition actually comes from other areas as well, with the search for alternative to plastics. This is another priority of the Commission, also under the heading of the Green Deal, moving away from plastics, and the increased use of fiber-based packaging to replace plastic-based packaging, in particular for single-use applications, creates again more demand for wood. We have this statement at the end where indeed, as Intergraf, we call for securing the access to wood fibers for end markets which inform, cultivate and educate European citizens. Another area concerning the sourcing of raw materials is a new initiative from the Commission on deforestation-free products and value chain. In the Green Deal, the Commission announces that it will take measures to promote imported products and value chains that do not involve deforestation and forest degradation worldwide. Recently, I think it was last October, the Commission presented its proposal. It sets mandatory due diligence rules for operators which place specific commodities on the European market. And these commodities may be associated with global deforestation or forest degradation. The purpose of the Commission is to ensure that only deforestation-free and legal products are allowed on the European market. Under the scope of this new regulation, soy, beef, palm oil, cocoa, coffee, and wood products. This proposal is more or less a copy of what is known as the European Timber Regulation, which focused similarly with a due diligence system on wood products. And unfortunately, printed products are not covered by this legislation. So basically, it goes from wood until paper, but as soon as you put ink on paper, the products falls outside the scope of the legislation. Well, what does it mean? It means basically in Europe, we do have to be compliant because obviously the paper that we buy needs to be compliant with the timber regulation. But when printed products are imported on the European market, they totally fall outside the scope of this legislation. And as the scopes was copied into this new legislation, again, printed products are for now excluded from the scope. So this is one of our lobbying action to call for the extension of the scope to cover imported printed products. After tackling the sourcing of raw materials, I will go into the processes. I will maybe be a bit shorter on this because I think the last part of my presentation is maybe more relevant for this group. When it comes to processes, the Green Deal intends to revise all the measures that address pollution from large industrial installations. And this is done via the revision of what we call the European Industrial Emissions Directive. This is legislation that covers many industrial processes. And when it comes to printing, the processes covered are the ones consuming more than 200 tons of solvents a year. This therefore concerns only basically heat-set printing, gravure printing, and flexo printing. 2 years ago, we had our VOC emission limits revised. So VOC, volatile organic compound, which are the emissions linked to the use of solvents. Those limits have been adopted 2 years ago, and they have will have to be implemented by companies falling within the scope of this legislation. They will have to be updated by 2024. So although that's a focus from the Commission, we trust our sector should be less concerned by the developments on industrial emissions. Also because the industry or the solvent using industries in general have good track records in terms of VOC emissions. This is what you see on the left-hand side with the reduction of VOC emissions. And also because it's not only industrial processes that emit VOCs, there are other sectors, and the Commission has already showed its intention to focus probably more on other sectors like agriculture. When we look at our processes and how the Green Deal will impact them, there's definitely the use of safe and sustainable chemicals, which is another priority for the Green Deal, which has the aim to move towards a zero pollution environment. And how they will proceed is with a revision of the European chemical legislation, so-called the REACH regulation. One of the actions that they want to take is to prioritize the production of safe chemicals over the minimization of exposure to hazardous chemicals. So really taking the problem, so to say, at the source, and that will mean probably banning more chemicals in the future. For our sector, we are looking at different chemicals. We are a lot relying on what our suppliers are telling us, because we're not always fully aware of what chemicals are being used in the different input materials. But one key chemical is chromium trioxide, which has been banned on the European market some years ago, but which is authorized for certain specific use. And this is the case for printing in gravure printing. And the authorization runs until 2024. After that date, the industry will have to check whether they can prolong the authorization or whether there are new alternatives developed to replace chromium trioxide. And the chemicals currently under the spotlight at European level are endocrine disruptors and PFAS. The last part of my presentation now goes to the design of products. This is an important area where we think we will probably have to that we have to put as a priority for our work. The Commission intends to present a new product policy framework that will make sustainable products the norm. We are expecting a package of initiatives at the end of March of this year. And for now, we only have ideas that the Commission has presented without knowing concretely what measures will be proposed. The focus on plastics is clear, but it won't be only about plastics. There will be requirements for all products on durability, reusability, repairability when possible, and definitely on recyclability. We will expect an increased demand on recycled content in products. Reduce single use, this is quite an important aspect. The Commission has already acted, and you may have heard about single-use plastics, where they have banned or restricted the use of certain single-use plastics. But we understand that there is an intention to focus more generally on single-use products and reduce their use. So, I mean, when talking about the type of products that we are interested in, like newspapers, I think it will be important to follow what the definition of single use will be and probably influence that if appropriate. Then the last aspect in the future initiatives from the Commission will be to focus on the reduction of the carbon and environmental footprint of products. And this is where I would really like to focus afterwards, because we really think it's an important aspect, and this is an area where printers and publishers can really work together. There will be also a legislative proposal on what the Commission calls substantiating green claims, which means that when a company will make an environmental statement about their product or about their company, it will have to be backed by science. How and which tool will be used or will have to be used, we do not know yet. The Commission has now its own methodology, which is called the PEF, the European Product Environmental Footprint. But obviously, I expect the Commission will have to take into consideration more tools available on the market, because it would be quite limitative to only rely on the current European methodology. I have prepared this last slide dedicated to the carbon footprint of print products, because as I said, we think it will be a very important discussion in the future for both printers and also publishers. There are numerous tools available on the market to calculate the carbon footprint of a product or of a company. However, the approach that we have taken as Intergraf was to develop not a tool, but recommendations for the sector to calculate the carbon footprint of either a printing company or a printed product. By developing 13 or identifying 13 parameters that you see in the dark blue box. And these 13 parameters cover, in general, 95% of the carbon footprint for the printing industry. They were developed already in 2013, but they are gaining traction now, almost 10 years later, by printers, but also by discussions now that we have with publishers. I must say currently the book publishers are extremely interested in the developments on how to calculate the carbon footprint of their products. The important aspect of our recommendations is that they have been developed by industry experts for industry. And they are really, those parameters are obviously very specific to our products and our companies. And most importantly, they cover the 3 scopes of the greenhouse gas protocol. Scope 1 is all the direct emissions from the production of the product. Scope 2 covers the indirect emissions linked to the energy consumption of the company. And Scope 3 covers all other indirect emissions from the supply chain. And several calculators often do not take Scope 3 into consideration because it might be more difficult to assess all the emissions from all the supplying industry. But for our sector, the main parameter that will influence the overall impact of a print product or a print process is the number 1, is the substrate. We have assessed that over 70% of the total footprint of a printing process or printing product comes from the paper. So it is key that when assessing the carbon footprint of a print product, for instance, this is taken into consideration. Based on this, based on all Intergraf recommendations, 2 practical tools have been developed by our members. We have a German tool, and we have Climate Calc, which is a tool elaborated and developed by a consortium of European printing trade associations, also member of Intergraf. Both tools really provide an assessment of the carbon footprint of both a print product or a print process based on the 13 parameters of the Intergraf recommendations. And they are, both of them are really accompanied by a support to help companies look at reducing the carbon footprint. There are 2 ways, or mainly 2 ways of doing it, and this is where the calculators can really help, is to be more energy efficient or act on the paper. So together with the supplier, the customer selecting the right substrate can really help reducing the carbon footprint of the printed product. This is actually now our current work, is to go beyond the recommendations and work towards helping companies to reduce the carbon footprint of our products. I think this is, yes, this was the last slide of my presentation. I included here my contact details, but I think we have plenty of time for questions. But in case you need to reach me, you can also use these contact details.
Thank you so much, Laetitia. That it was a great presentation. And I'm guessing we have a lot of questions from the audience, and I'll let you post your questions, because this presentation at least arose a lot of questions for me. So I will, I think, start by extracting on the carbon footprint, because this is something that we're talking about a lot, and people are thinking about companies, etc. Is the EU measuring carbon footprint, or is it requiring companies to have a lower carbon footprint?
The EU as such, the European Commission not, because what they are doing is of course setting more longer term targets, the 55% for instance by 2030, or the carbon neutrality by 2050. But then it's up to the national level to implement legislation that will support that. And in these different initiatives, this is what the aim, of course, is. As I mentioned, the Commission has developed a methodology, not only about the carbon footprint, actually, but the environmental footprint of products. And it is at a stage where pilot products, pilot industries have done the exercise and have developed their own PEF, product environmental footprint. One of the sectors that has been involved is the paper industry. So they have done the exercise for what they call intermediate paper, so paper without the further processing of the paper. So should, at one point of time, should there be a requirement to go for this European methodology, we would probably work with what the paper industry has started to do.
Thank you, Laetitia. I also am wondering about one thing. Here's a question I have from the Q&A part. How could printers and publishers collaborate better on environmental issues? I'm guessing we have, of course, within WAN-IFRA, we have publishers who are printers as well, and then we have printers who are contract printers for publishers. So this might be an issue. So it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about this.
I think there are several areas where we can collaborate. I mentioned the sourcing of paper. If this is a problem for Intergraf members, this is a problem for WAN-IFRA members. So securing the sourcing of paper for the production of our common products is definitely an area where we can collaborate and send key messages to whomever. I mean, we are focusing obviously on European authorities. We're supporting our members with approaching the national authorities. So that's definitely one area. And then the second area is really on our product. So first, defending our common product, fighting against myth linked to the use of paper, and working on with common vocabulary and methodologies, ideally. So that's why I mentioned our approach to carbon footprint. We are not necessarily forcing people to go with our system, but we think, obviously, for publishers, printing will probably be the main impact on the carbon footprint of a newspaper, and so that part we can work together. Then it's so we can provide ways to reduce that part, and but it's important we speak the same language. So that's why we have this 13 parameters. If this is something publishers would agree that would support, then they would just add their few other parameters for the additional elements, and really understanding together that paper is the main aspect that which influences the carbon footprint of the final product.
Thank you. You have to apologize for my environmental sounds, because I have my kids at home, so we will have some extra sounds, but that's okay.
I don't hear anything. So
yeah, well, that's fine. I think everybody understands how it is. There is one question here also about books. Reduced single use means no more books. maybe not no more books, but no more books, he says here. Books store CO2 indefinitely, like furniture of construction timber. This does not make a lot of sense. Do you understand this question?
Reduce single use means, yeah, I mean, generally reducing single use, of course, doesn't, yes, certainly doesn't make any sense for books. It will, I mean, that's why we need to be vigilant in general when the commission, I'm talking about the commission, but it can be an authority, it can be any regulator. When they draft legislation, they do it for many sectors. So when we see that, we know that we can be impacted, but we will have a say. So I think we can certainly influence the regulators in making sure that the definition they adopt, if they want to go into that direction, is appropriate for all products.
Okay. What about all the environmental labels? Now we're working with quite a number of environmental labels in Europe. Yeah. And what can we do? What do you think about all these? Should they be combined to fewer labels, or is it too complex? Is it because, at least I've heard from some printers that they consider it a pyramid scheme. They said, okay, I have all the things in order, but I don't want to pay someone to do it. So what is your opinion, and how should we go about that?
Well, I think it's again an area where we need to collaborate, because what is important is that we all understand what each label means. It's important that the printer is able to communicate to the publisher that what label says what is the environmental message behind the label. Having a PFC or FSC, it has to be clear that it doesn't say anything about a lot of aspects of printing a print product. It just gives information on the sourcing of the paper. We have no yet clear recommendations on labels. I think our point is really to be clear on what they represent. But we, as a European Trade Association, we have been working on the European eco-label, which can be applied to printed products for several years. So we have been consulted. The same goes for the Nordic Swan, for our Nordic members, or the Blue Angel with the German association. So this kind of labels, they have been developed with the expertise of the industry, with the contribution of NGOs as well. And well, we have reached something which is acceptable or should be considered acceptable by industry. There are a number of other labels that are emerging on the market, where we have nothing to do, but they are extremely efficient in marketing themselves. And well, we tend to consider them more as commercial tools really than environmental labels. So again, that's also an area where we would like to work, trying to help users, so printers, publishers, using these labels and understanding what they cover.
While talking about the labels, the eco-labels, because I most of the printing companies, at least in Iceland, where I come from, have now been awarded the Nordic Swan, and they are working in accordance with that. Should we try to use that more as a labeling everything with these eco labels? Like, is that something that could help the printing industry maybe to be cleaner, or show people that how sustainability is taken seriously in this industry? I'm
not sure this is the solution for everything thing, unfortunately. Eco-labels, they do not aim to initially to be used by all the industry. Actually, the authorities are telling us we don't want the average levels, we want the highest. And they are supposed to demonstrate excellence. So they shouldn't be able to be reached by everyone. I'm not sure about the Nordics one or the Blue Angel, but at least that was the message behind the eco-label. The idea was to tackle like 20% of the products on the market by the eco-label. I think it's important to understand that in countries like European countries and surrounding countries, there's a strong regulatory framework. I mentioned emissions, I mentioned chemicals. With the Green Deal, we expect that the requirements will be even more stringent. So yeah, I mean, we are already working under strict requirements, especially when you compare with imported products. So I think already saying printing in Europe is, I think, is a label in itself with the stringent environmental requirements that are applicable.
Here's another one. We've had a structural decline in newspapers circulation for years. How do you think the Green Deal will influence this development? Will newspapers still be accepted as a product by readers at all because of the high carbon footprint? It's a very interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah. When we discussed the EU eco-label initially, I mean, we were not necessarily the industry. We necessarily did not want the eco-label, and the discussions was really around whether you would buy a book or a newspaper if it has or doesn't have an eco-label. What I'm saying, or what I want to say is, yes, the environmental footprint of a product is important, but for certain products like cultural products, I think it should play less of a role. Now, I think it's important to be able to demonstrate that the industry is making efforts to reduce its carbon footprint, so that in any case, I don't think the reduction in newspaper circulation is linked to the environmental impact of the newspaper, but I mean, that's really an interesting question. I'd be interested to hear some other comments on this. I think people realize more and more that the digital alternative has an environmental impact. So that I think is there are clearly recognition for this.
Is talking about that the digital impact. I mean, is that covered in this package? I mean, did you see that the digital companies, do they have to bear some of the burdens of their pollution that they create with the digital pollution? Yeah.
It will. Yeah, I think the Commission has realized that. They need to take them into consideration. So I think when selecting the pilot studies, they wanted to have servers or some electronic products linked to that are big users of digital services. So yes, this is an increased interest for the Commission. Now, well, this package on product policy is not out yet, so we'll see whether they will target certain product groups, probably, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the digital services as one of the products, one of the targets.
Okay, here's one. how is the substrate paper footprint calculated? Does it take into account the CO2 absorption of the managed forest? Does it change significantly depending on being recycled or virgin fiber?
Yeah, well, that unfortunately that question goes a bit beyond my knowledge. I would need to well, either check or recommend rather to have the expertise of someone who knows better the paper industry. It has a major impact. How is it calculated? When in the calculators, they are. I think the paper suppliers are providing that information that is then being included in the calculators systems. There are databases available. I think this is the eco-invent type of databases that are being used, and then you basically select your paper and it gives you the calculation. But yeah, unfortunately, I really cannot really help in this level of technical expertise.
Okay, thanks for trying at least. Maybe coming back a little bit to recycling. Do we have more demand on more sorted recycling? Are papers or companies required to sort better their recycling, so and maybe follow through with where their recycling goes, or what's the demand on recyclables from production companies such as newspaper printers? The requirements, the legal requirements, they are not so high, in the sense that the paper recycling schemes in Europe work well. The paper recycling in Europe is high compared to other regions of the world, and compared to other waste streams. So that has been acknowledged by the authorities and by the regulators at European level, and therefore there is less constraints on paper recycling than for other streams. I think it functions quite well. Paper waste is a resource for recyclers, so it's the benefit of both the printers and the recyclers that waste is sorted properly at company level. Of course, then the issue is more with household waste and sorting, and then here you have a large disparity among countries, some performing better than others. But we are now, I think, confronted with a different aspect. It's more the change in the waste paper mix, with the increased use of packaging and the decreasing use of graphics. You see it. I understand now the recyclers or the collectors are seeing it since the pandemic even more, with the color basically of the paper being the paper mix getting browner and browner. So that will be a challenge. That would be a challenge, or that is already a challenge for recycled for paper collecting, and therefore the recycled paper. We see it on the price of recycled paper, which has also significantly increased, and which is part of the explanation of the price of newsprint. There's less volume available. Okay, very good. Just digging a little bit more into recyclables, and maybe we touched on this in our World Printer Summit last year. We spoke about mineral oils, how they affect recyclability of the paper. Can you tell us what's happening there, maybe a little bit?
Yeah, that's the other another big issue right now.
Yeah.
so to say, well, I would say not yet at European level, in the sense that there is no intention yet from the Commission to regulate, but we see developments at national level, in Germany and France in particular, taking totally different approaches. Germany has issued a mineral oil ordinance, which regulates basically the packaging and that recycled recycled fibers-based packaging are either tested or they include a barrier. So that's one way of tackling the issue. The other approach is by the French is now to try to eliminate mineral oil from the source. And they have just presented a legislation banning or restricting the use of mineral oil in inks, in all inks, so for graphics and for packaging. And obviously the issue is for graphics and for certain of our processes, in particular heat-set printing. Printing without mineral oil is an issue. Without mineral oil, with the thresholds proposed by the French authorities currently. So what we see from the European perspective is that it is difficult to regulate that at national level. The European Union is it's one market, and when it comes to graphics or to even more to packaging, the rules should be harmonized. We should work with the same rules. And if there's a common agreement that we need to address the issue of mineral oil, it should be done at European level and not at national level. Now, how to address it, that's a question to discuss, because the French approach of banning mineral oil in printing inks for graphics, when anyway there's a lot of other input material in the waste that may contain mineral oil, including packaging, all the packaging from all the products that are coming on the French market, not only from other European countries, but from outside the EU. That's absolute. I mean, that makes no sense. So yeah, that will be an important discussion in the coming month. This mineral oil issue.
Okay, great, thank you. We have time for one more question. If somebody has a ready question that he or she can post. Okay, I hear people have heard quite a lot and are more knowledgeable after this. I think the audience is happy with your answers, and I am at least very happy to have you here with us today. I hope this is just the beginning of the more relationships between Intergraf and the World Printers Forum. Of course, Beatrice has been a speaker with us, so this is probably just the beginning. Yeah. Thank you. We welcome that as well. Thank you, Ingi. We welcome that as well from the side of Intergraf. Okay, thank you so much. I thank you all for being here today, and all hope to see you in our next event. We'll post that, of course, in our newsletter, so you'll see that. And have a good weekend. It's tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, so the weekend starts. So have a good time and a good day, and all the best to you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.